Hello everybody, my name is Newtman and welcome back to episode 18 of my Ultimate Mo's Guide series. Today we're going to be going over what I think are some of the best Torgue weapons currently in the game. Now, I know, there are an absolute ton of Torgue legendary weapons in this game that are worth using, but for the sake of time and just to be concise for this video, I thought I'd just cover my personal favourites that I actually use for a lot of my builds. We'll be covering where you can get the guns, what the best anoints are, and what sort of build the gun will work best with. If you guys find this video useful, please consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel too. Thanks! And now, for the reason you clicked on this video probably, let's go over what I think the best Torgue weapons in the game are. Now, let's start with the powerhouse, and by that I mean the Plague Bearer. It's a rocket launcher that drops from the Warden on the Anvil of Mayhem 6 and above. It can spawn with any element, but I highly recommend getting yourselves the Radiation and Corrosive elements. The Plague Bearer is basically a better Scourge and fires a slow moving projectile that spawns homing micro missiles as it travels through the air to its unfortunate victims. The 390 or the consecutive hits anoint works absolutely brilliantly with this, but I prefer using the consecutive hits anoint as it works smoother when taking down bosses like Wotan and Scourge that have immunity phases. Because basically with the 390 anoint you fire off a single shot, it does as big damage, but then the boss's immunity phase kicks in, and the anoint's basically useless because the boss is on 90% health, so that's why I prefer to use a consecutive hits anoint. So, as you can see in the background gameplay, this build absolutely slaps and this gun is ridiculous. I'm actually using my Metal Jacket Mo's build, which is a build I'll be updating to level 65, so stay tuned to the channel if you want to stay in the loop about that and see how this build works. And as you can see, yeah, this gun is absolutely ridiculous, especially with Mo's, and with skills like Short Fuse and firing the Skagden boosting the projectiles damage, yeah, it gets a bit crazy. Moving swiftly on to weapon number 2, we have the Contained Blast, one of my personal favourite assault rifles. It's a DLC 3 weapon that drops from Abadoxus on Ashfall Peaks on any Mayhem levels. It, being a Torgue weapon, has a sticky fire mode, but not as its alternate fire like standard Torgue weapons. The Contained Blast actually fires fast moving projectiles, where the first shot from your trigger pull will explode on impact, and the other projectile will be sticky. That will explode after a slight delay, much like all the other sticky projectile Torgue weapons. Now, although it is a semi-automatic weapon, you can still fire it very fast, as you can see in the game in the background. I highly recommend getting yourselves the Contained Blast in the consecutive hits anoint, in conjunction with the standard 3-tree build. So you can find the write-up for that build in a Google document that myself, Prismatic, and Rampant actually work on and update quite frequently. You can find that document in the pinned documents down below. But if you want to wait for my triple threat build that I'm going to be updating on YouTube to level 65, feel free. And now for a change of pace, let's move to some Torgue pistols, shall we? And we can touch on the Prodigal Son itself, the Unkempt Harold. It's a returning Borderlands 2 pistol that can roll an early element and drop some Caber Dord over at Blood Sun Canyon in DLC 3 Bounty of Blood. It's a multi-projectile pistol that combines high base damage, a decent semi-automatic fire rate, just to be able to dish out a ton of damage. Combine this with a Blastmaster or a Minesweeper class mod with the consecutive hits anoint, and you got yourself a very reliable weapon that you can mob and boss kill with. The next weapon is another pistol that comes in the form of the Prompt Critical. Now, if you don't want DLC 4 spoilers, skip to the timestamp on the screen right now. Just got to give you a few seconds to click away. And yeah. The Prompt Critical drops from Evil Lilith in Chaos or Crimson and can roll in any element. Stick on a consecutive hits anoint and the Radiation element along with the Minesweeper class mod, and you got yourself a weapon of mass destruction in a very small package. I actually have a build in mind which I'll be trying out live on stream at twitch.tv/Newtman, where I stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 AM Eastern Time. So feel free to drop by and hang out while we work on the build, meme around, and maybe even do some takedowns together. I'll be putting the link to my Twitch channel in the pinned comment down below. But back to the critical. Its unique selling point is its sticky mode, where the more sticky projectiles you land on an enemy, the subsequent explosions increase in radius and damage, and as you can see in the gameplay, it's honestly quite absurd, especially when you get enough sticky projectiles to create a huge explosion. Now, for a change of pace, let's move away from the pistols and touch on an assault rifle, the Juliet's Dazzle. It's a base game legendary weapon that drops from Aurelia or Wotan the Invincible on Mayhem 4 and above. It can roll in either cryo or kinetic, and I highly recommend getting yourselves one in the consecutive hits anointment. Now, although this gun is a bit of a struggle to use just because of its high kick and poor iron sights, its damage is nothing to scoff at. It also has a unique passive of refilling its magazine after each kill, but considering we're playing Mo's, the passive isn't really that great, but overall, the gun is still really solid. Moving on, we can finally get to the shotguns of the Torgue manufacturer, and we have the Spade and the Tigsboom. Let's start with the Tigsboom, shall we? It's a very interesting shotgun that drops on Wotan the Invincible at any mayhem level and can roll with a large variety of parts. I highly recommend getting yourselves the ×18 variant with consecutive hits. It can also roll in any element, so I highly suggest getting yourselves the Radiation and Corrosive variants just to cover your bases with any enemy HP type. The gun also has the unique ability of just splitting the sky in half and bringing down high damage meteors on the enemies you shoot at. These meteors scale with whatever splash damage you provide, so you can already tell that Moze can do absolute work with this gun. Bear in mind, the meteors are a bit dumb sometimes, and by that I mean it doesn't really work indoors quite well, and sometimes it tracks the enemies poorly, so if you're fighting fast moving flying enemies, the meteors might not do much work, but the Tigsboom has really solid base damage anyway, and because of its high projectile count, you can be sure you can kill enemies very quickly with it. Now, considering it has a relatively small mag size, I wouldn't suggest using a Blastmaster class mod, but instead to slap on a Minesweeper class one instead, just to wreak some absolute havoc on all the enemies you see. And now, winding up the list, we have the Spade. It's a multiple projectile, fast firing shotgun that drops on Wayland Herd in Obsidian Forest in DLC 3 Bounty of Blood, and it can roll in any element as well. Much like the Tigsboom, its small magazine size makes it ideal for Minesweeper usage, and not so much a Blastmaster. And because of its fast fire rate and fairly fast relay speed, you can really dish out some consistent number of DPS. The best setup for this would be a standard 3-tree, and once again is something I'll be making a video on soon, so stay tuned to the channel for that. But yeah, the Spade also has the unique ability to pass through enemies, so you can take out multiple enemies in just a few shots, provided they line up nicely. So if you want to use this gun properly, be sure to ask the enemies to line up for you. And yeah, that rounds out what I think are some of the best Torgue weaponry you can get from Moze to smash through any content currently in the game at level 65. Like always, if you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, do let me down in the comments below. But aside from that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you all so much for watching, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya!